Hi Neha, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for taking out the time. Um, yeah, as we've
Thank you
kind
so
of
much. My pleasure.
as we've discussed, I mean, this podcast is just a way to get to know um, the number of different types of alumni that we have coming out from IIMA and getting to understand all the diverse journeys that people have faced, and to create more accessible role models for women in business. And that's how we got to know you, and your story is something that I think I have taken away a lot from when we've had these discussions. And I can't wait for other people to also get to know more about your experience. So starting off, right, if somebody were to kind of look at your experience so far, right, without really knowing you, you've kind of gone from doing marketing and hardcore insights for a number of like multinational corporations to now moving into the development sector, where you've been working with Akshay Patra, I think the last position that you were holding. Um, what has been your driving force, right? Because they seem like very distinct worlds. But what's been the one thing that's kind of been driving you through all of this?
So I think, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure, really. And I'm hopeful I can add something to the discussion for other people to take away. But I just feel like I've started myself, like I was telling you. So it's like I'm fresh out of college, and I'm just learning my way through the sector. So yes, what drives me is really how I can make myself better from what I was yesterday. So I
Hmm.
think I like every day to be a new challenge. So I feel I get bored if I don't get to learn the next day.
Hmm.
So having done the marketing and the consumer insight roles, and those were amazing learning journeys, anyways. But I think, it happened not by choice or design;
Yeah.
it just happened. When I landed in the development sector, I think that just opened my eyes to a whole new world of learning, where I could learn and make an impact at the same time. So I think that really gelled with my true north, so to say. So I think that's been one of my greatest driving forces, that I get to learn every day, and it's like throwing yourself at the deep end of the swimming pool without knowing how to swim every single day. So it's nice. It's a little bit silly, and creates puts me in that position of, oh my god, I don't know a thing. Um, but I think it makes you a better person, and a stronger person at the end of the day. So I think that's
Yeah.
definitely one driving force. Um, Others, I think, are I think I like to experiment with different things. I think I go from one thing to the other as a bit of a dabbler. So even in my corporate journey, like you said, I've worked with a few organizations, and even within those organizations, it was like every 9 months I would start itching for a little bit of different role and different profile. So I have done that a little bit. So going from marketing, consumer insight, procurement roles, um, and now in the development sector. So again, it I think I crave for that experimental feel to it, that I can start something new and then finish it off and then move on to something different. So for me, I think it is more about getting the breadth of experience rather than just rising
Hmm.
vertically. So yeah, jack of all trades.
Yeah,
that's
and I mean,
that's
I can,
that's what I am,
yeah,
really.
no, I can see that because for everybody who's listening as well, I'm sure when we kind of post this, there'll be a link to your LinkedIn as well. So I'm sure there's a lot of stalking that happened. But you basically started out, I mean, from IMA, you went to Procter and Gamble, right, where you were on Insights,
Yes.
and then to
Yes.
Pepsi, where again I think it was Insights, and
Yeah.
then to GSK, where actually you made that switch, right, like you were mentioning, to procurement.
Yes.
What
Yes.
was that like? Like, was it were there any synergies that you kind of saw between insights and procurements? How did you kind of handle that switch first? The first kind of
So
big
that was
dabble that you did.
Yeah, that was very interesting, actually, because I was working on the Lucozade brand,
Hmm.
and it was all going well. And then suddenly, because I was in insight and handling market research, etc., for Lucozade, and I happened to speak to one of the people in procurement on a team meeting, etc. And it so happened they were looking for procurement people who have a market research background. So I think there
Oh,
was a big
okay.
project that they were trying to see how can we create synergies across market research, procurement, etc. And no one was actually doing it. So I was like, oh, that sounds exciting. So I was like, I can have a dabble at that. because I have the market research background. I know how to buy market research, how to work with suppliers, what kind of suppliers are there. So it actually turned out very well, because I could bring in, besides procurement. So procurement, they taught us. They had a week-long course, etc. But what I brought to the table was, okay, this is what the brands need. This is how geographies are
Understood.
different, and how can you consolidate, um, and the trade-offs that the teams will have to face. So we ended up saving a huge lot of money,
No, I can
because of that
imagine
market
because
research consolidation.
usually when you think of procurement, it's very negotiations driven, right? It's a very like typically the procurement team doesn't have a lot of knowledge about what
Yeah.
the end goal, maybe end goal, yes, but what the intricacies of the product are and what the consumer is thinking and all of that. So I'm sure that would have brought a whole other level of insight into the team, and there
Yeah,
must have been a lot.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's
So that was
basically
a
what.
fun project,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it helped because I knew the teams, and I knew where they approached the problem from what perspective, etc. So I could read their minds before they told me anything. So I think it really clicked. And I think the teams also understood how important it is to engage your marketing and brand counterparts really in the procurement process, because the
Hmm.
value and insight you bring coming from there is precious. You can't learn it in negotiations, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said you were the AI engine before talk of that even started.
Yeah, you can put it that way.
Awesome. So, if you had to think about, these inflection points, because I'm sure there must have been a lot of these incidents or people who guided you or things you went through that kind of put you on this path that you're on now. What were some of the top inflection points that happened in your life that led you to where you are?
Hmm. Oh, so the first one was definitely getting through IIM Ahmedabad. Again,
Mm,
that was not a choice really, because like growing up in India, it's everything is dictated almost by parents, by society, and you can be an engineer or a doctor, and then you go into MBA if you're an engineer. So I did the engineering and did the marketing MBA. I
mm,
didn't even know why I was doing the MBA really. So, but once I got through, I think it just changed my life completely, because the amount of uh, the horizons that you're exposed to, the opportunities that you get from teachers, the people, the students who are studying there, the friends you make, the first jobs you get into. So I got into my dream job. I
yeah.
couldn't have dreamt into getting into PNG from any other place, for example. So I think it just changed that perspective completely and opened a whole new world of opportunities, just going
Huh,
to IMA. So IMA was definitely the biggest, or at least the first inflection point.
yeah.
Then yeah, the corporate journey continued, but I think where I found my second inflection point was after I had my kids. Because being on maternity breaks, you get that time to think it through. Because I think I never sat down to think about what I'm doing, why I was doing what I was doing. You just assume you're
Hmm.
moving forward, you're getting promoted, you're enjoying your work, you're good at your work, and that is where you're headed. And that is, you can't go either which way. But I think just having kids makes you look at it from a different lens. At least for me, it did. So I think it's a very personal um,
Hmm.
a case for me, perhaps. But, it made me think that what is that one thing that I want to do that I'll be happy doing, even if I have to leave my kids back at home. So,
Hmm.
and going back to work wasn't giving me that happiness. So I've just, when I went back to work after having kids, I just had that bit of guilt in me, because
Hmm.
I wasn't giving full attention to either the child or to the job. So I think that made me question my priorities
Great.
really, and ask why I'm doing what, and what is it that will actually give me joy. So that was the second one, which brought me to my third inflection point, because after all this, thinking and toing and froing and trying out different things, I volunteered at the charity and
Hmm.
did exactly what I was doing at erstwhile GSKs and Pepsis, with branding, marketing, consumer insight work. But it just I don't know, it made me happier. It just ticked that satisfaction box, which I don't think I
Hmm.
had got earlier. So I think that really opened my eyes to the possibility that, okay, I can do this. There's nothing stopping me from changing my career course. So I think I was lucky as well, because I had that flexibility, and
Mm-hmm.
we were at that life stage where we were a bit settled, and my husband Amit was working in a full-time job, so I had that luxury almost of experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, going into the social impact sector, you do take a hit on your salary, um,
Mm.
and you start at a much lower level as well, because I'm not a trained development sector guy. So
Right.
you do compromise that at some level, but I
Mm.
think that really changed where I am. Yeah, made way for where I am today.
But that's, I mean, that's really interesting, because what I'm taking away is that it was almost like, how a lot of these corporates now have sabbaticals, which is essentially that you take a few months off to think about what you want to do, maybe eventually, or you work on a different project, or you work for a different company. And there's almost like these exchanges that are almost structured into your career path so that you get more exposure. It's cool that you actually got to do that while on break from work as well, right? When you took a maternity leave for your kids, and even when you went back, you chose to take that step back and do it yourself. And I'm sure that that took a lot of courage as well, right? That taking that decision, and sticking to it, and then almost making this shift. I'm sure there's a lot of similarities, because like you said, it's still branding, marketing, and insight, but just the context has changed so much that I'm sure there was a lot of learning that you had to do as well.
Yes,
But how
absolutely.
did
And
you how did you go through that? Yeah.
it did take a lot of courage. I remember, because when I first told my parents specifically, they weren't sure about what I was going on saying. So like, "Ooh, what?" So that did make no sense to them whatsoever. Why I would leave such a stable, well-paying job to go?
Mm,
Because initially I didn't even know what I was going to do. So it was only after I started researching and finding out things that I decided, okay, I'll try this.
right.
So initially it was like, it was a black hole basically. So I was just quitting. So even I didn't know what I
Yeah, but
wanted to
that's
do.
a
So I think
courageous choice as well. Like quitting without knowing what you're going to do next is
it
like
was,
you
and
need to
I
have.
think, yeah, and there have been times, Garima, that I have thought about, that was probably the worst choice I made in life. But then you keep having those bad days, and then you keep, finding something, some door opens, and you're like,
Mm,
okay, this is why I took that decision when I took it.
right.
But the societal pressure, I think, is a lot, because you have done all that bit of education and hard work and rigor, and then um, people do wonder what for then. So I think
Right.
it's but I think you have to be to take that step, I think. And I still have to kind of, keep convincing myself, and telling myself that it was for the right option to do a good job, for a
Right.
good cause, because you can otherwise get lost in that rabbit hole of I just, yeah, basically took the wrong step and didn't do the right
Right.
thing that I was meant to do.
I
So
remember when, in fact, we were having this discussion, you were also telling me about this course that you did, right? Around
yes,
redesigning your career. What was
yes,
that
yes.
about, and how did that kind of help you in that time?
So the redesigning the career course I did actually this year. So start of this year, or,
Okay.
or towards the end of last year. So that was, in fact, after I resigned from the Akshay Patra role. So because I resigned from the Akshay Patra role, again, it was not fulfilling my what's next kind of box. So, what is more to experiment and learn. So I think I had outgrown the role and the organization a little bit, and I wanted some more change and some more ways to create impact. So that's
Yeah.
when I did that, and because I wanted to again challenge myself and go on this inner journey to discover, am I really on the right path? What is it that my heart and my brain really desires? So I
Yeah.
think, and that was really mind opening in a way. So it's called Redesign Your Career, and it helps you kind of put your thoughts and your aspirations into a nice little structure framework. It's designed, the course is designed by Stanford grads, etc., to
Okay.
figure out what they want to do in life. But it's
Hmm.
actually run by an IIMA alum as well, so Ramya Ranganathan, and she does a beautiful job of running the course.
Right.
um, but it really made me kind of find what my true north is, what really makes me tick and what
Hmm.
gives me happiness. And
Hmm.
no matter how many different angles I tried to go in, it kept bringing me back to the same social impact area. So
Yeah.
at the end of it, I was convinced that, okay, fine, I'm on the right path. So
Yeah.
this is the path, but it did give me a lot of other food for thought to kind of um, proceed in different directions, still in the social impact sector.
Hmm.
But basically, wherever I can add value and create value, I think that's what I need to do.
So does that mean that, when we spoke about what has driven you in the beginning of the podcast, when you spoke about how you like
Mm.
experimenting, you like doing new things, does that mean that what has been driving you has also shifted a little bit from when, say, you started off with your career and where you are now? Does that change
Oh,
over the years?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, like I said, initially what used to drive me was progression, right? When is the next promotion coming? Where is the next salary rise coming? So I think that's all that was motivating me, and which made me, okay, let me try this, let me try that, because you don't sit and think why I'm doing this. So it was
Hmm.
about progression, completely about progression earlier.
Hmm.
But I think since I've moved to the charity sector, I've I felt that my joy and my driver for motivation is not progression. So I just like, how can I make impact? So can I do
Hmm.
something in the education space? Can I do something in the food space? Sustainability. So there are just so many avenues where you can make that difference. So for me, it's just wider progression rather than a vertical progression. So yeah, I've given up my dreams of being a CEO someday.
Why not? But in the development space.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, that I think rings true as well, right? I mean, I'm not there yet, so maybe I can't maybe relate completely, but uh, I'm sure there are times when you take stock of what life has to offer and what you have to offer as well, and that kind of changes based on what position you're in and what really you value at that time, right? And so we spoke a little bit about, when you took your maternity leave, and we like to do this thing where we put a gender lens on your career and your life so far. I know you spoke about that, but I'm not sure if that's what your answer is going to be. But if you were to put that gender lens, what do you think was, how was your experience when you put that gender lens on?
See, I throughout my working life, I never felt that I was at any disadvantage because I was a woman.
Hmm.
So I never felt that disparity at all in any of the companies or roles I've been. So
Right.
I know there are lots of organizations where unfortunately women still do go through that a lot in India. Um, Perhaps I was working abroad, which is why it wasn't as evident. But I had definitely been lucky in that sense.
Hmm.
Where I think being a woman was did take me at a disadvantage was having kids, really, because it does put you
Hmm.
um, back in on the career ladder, whether you like it or not, because you do go on a break.
Hmm.
I was the main carer for my children as well. So um, and somewhere you decide what are your priorities, and you change your own expectations for yourself. So yes, I could have been easily on the path, and lots of my friends are still on the same path, and
Right.
it didn't impact them whatsoever. So I think it's a very personal perspective as well on how you take what life gives you.
Hmm.
So I decided to um, take a break and just focus on the family, because I think that gave me more happiness at that point in time.
Right.
But yes, equally, hats off to the women who are able to do both.
Yeah.
And yeah, so for me, I think it definitely kind of pulled me back a little bit. But I think
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it just feels like it was meant to be, and that was the only way I was able to find this new calling, so to say.
Yeah.
Otherwise I probably would have just gone on that same path and never discovered. It's like, getting lost on a walk, and you then find this hidden waterfall. So
No, I think,
so I
yeah. I think what I'm taking away definitely is, the importance of also taking stock, right, at regular intervals. You got to do it obviously because there was this very natural phase in your life where you took stock because you had kids and you had to think about, okay, how do I want my life to be? But suppose, say, you didn't have that break, right? There would still be at some point a time when you would think about, is this something I would want to do for the next 10 years of my life or 15 years of my life? Is that something that I mean that you've seen with even your peers, right? Like the ones that you mentioned that, okay, maybe they still
Mm.
continued in their career paths. I'm sure there must be a time like this when everybody starts to evaluate what are they really aiming for.
Yes, and taking stock in life, I think everyone does. Like Amit, for example, right? So my husband, he's been in this similar kind of job for the last 15 years since we graduated from IIMA. Um, and he loves his job, but at the same time, I think he knows that he would love to try something else, but there's never the time to kind of really take a breath and assess options and then decide accordingly. And it's a big risk as well
Hmm.
for so many people to just stop what you're doing and then either go on a sabbatical, like you said, or take a break
Yeah.
completely. So I think it just needs that big leap of faith, and sometimes we're just too scared to take it. um,
Hmm.
so in which case I feel blessed that I was able to,
Hmm.
and I think my environment around me supported me to do that, really. But for a lot of people, I know then they're not happy. And on the course that we did with Ramya,
Yeah.
a lot of people were in that little puddle, right? Because they have been
Hmm.
doing what they have been doing for the last few years, but they're not happy and they want to try something different. But it is just about knowing, because sometimes you also worry a lot about what if we do this and this is not the right thing to do, right? So
Hmm.
I think this is something wonderful I learned, and I'm trying to implement it in my own life. Is it's not one life we're living, so we can make it into 4 lives, because we're there for at least 80 years, right?
Yeah.
So yes, what's stopping me from saying, okay, I've done 10 years of a marketing life, now I'll do 10 years of social impact life, and then I do 10 years of being an artist, and the next 10 years being a photographer. So I think that's what it's opened up my eyes to, that I can't be, I think it's made me realize that don't let your degree shackle you almost, right? So sometimes we just feel like, oh my god, I have this marketing degree, and I have 10 years of marketing, and which is what kept bothering me as well. I have this
Yeah.
experience, I can't just lose it all and then start afresh. So I think that's
Hmm.
what worries a lot of us. And somewhere we just need to, if you're happy and you're satisfied with what you're doing, then of course, make the most of it. But I think if
Hmm.
some people like me are still on the question mark, um, then I think somewhere you have to kind of see, does my get if I shed my degree and start afresh, what is it that I'll do, and not be bound
Yeah.
to it. Because I think what IMA has given us is resilience, is work ethic. So I think
Hmm.
those qualities will make you succeed wherever you go, whatever you do. Um,
Right.
so so I think that's what I feel, that let's not be scared. We all are, and I still am when I'm trying to do something new. But yeah, it's getting less.
Yeah.
The anxiety is getting less.
Nice. So basically, don't focus on the sunk cost, right? The number one rule
Yeah,
in all economic
yeah,
theory,
exactly.
which I
Yeah,
think most
absolutely. Yeah.
humans, because we're not rational, we tend to forget. But sunk cost will also sink you.
Absolutely. What's happened has happened. Yes, absolutely. And it's only added something to your development as a person. So it's not even a sunk
Hmm.
cost.
Yeah. Yeah. From sunk cost to going back to IMA, right? You said that gave you a lot of resilience, made you into who you are, and was the first inflection point. What are some of the things that you remember when you get together with your friends or when you're generally reminiscing?
Oh, um, yeah, I missed 2 years of awesome fun. I say 2 years, actually, the first semester was really, really hard. I remember those first few months were so excruciatingly difficult, but I think you make the best friends when times are desperate. So I think all my dorm mates, so we're still friends in the dorm, and I met Amit there. So I still call him Lalu, Lalu actually, which my in-laws don't like as much, I think. So my name was Imli, and I'm still Imli Masi for like the whole generation of children that I know. And whether their parents are from IIMA or not, I'm still Imli Masi. So it's a very confusing world for my kids as well, because they have so many masis and chachas, and they have no idea who's family, who's friend, what's happening. But they're all masis and chachas. So
But
I
that's the
think, yeah,
best anecdote. Yeah.
yeah, friendships is the best thing that I think I've taken from IMA, definitely. What else do I remember? I remember talent night. I think talent night was another test of perseverance, because I think that opened the floodgates to, okay, you can do whatever people ask you to do, basically, without worrying. So I've done from modeling to dancing to, oh god, random things which I had never dreamt I would be doing. So yes,
Do you
it
remember
kind
your
of.
section name? Do you remember your
I was
section
section C.
name?
Yeah, I always
And what
remember
was your
section.
what was what was the name that you gave? Did you have that?
To the talent night.
There was usually like a name na, that you're supposed to give to your section during tea night, during talent night.
Oh
Or
my
maybe that
god,
got
that's a
started
tough one,
later.
Darima.
There was a very
I have
bad.
absolutely no recollection of that.
I think you're better
My
off.
section mates will beat me up now.
I think you're better off. I was in section E, and my year we were called Evil Inc. I don't know why, but that was what it was. So, I'm
Oh
sure this is
gosh,
something
okay, I
that
have no
started.
recollection whether we had a section name or not.
And they were really
What I
embarrassing.
remember
So,
was that we. What I do remember from talent night is section C put so much enthu and so much hard work on the penultimate night. Okay, so this was not even the final night, but usko bilkul four dala hamare section ne. And then we totally chilled out on the main day. So we did absolutely nothing. We obviously lost talent night, but we were on such a high after the penultimate night that we're like, okay, crack macha diya, ab chill karo.
I can see
I'm still.
all the lingo coming out as soon as you talk about teenage.
Oh yes,
But I think,
yeah. So talent night was huge
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
And then what I remember, WAC wasn't a pleasant memory at all, but I think it's really made me into what I am. I'm still such a last minute girl. Everyone knows, okay, Emily will do it at the last minute, so no point asking her. So whether it's packing for holidays, whether it's organizing parties, it's all done last minute.
It's
And
just in
pisle raat
time
ko slog,
management. It's a management
total just
theory.
in time management. Yes, yes. I can take a course on that now. So it's like raat ko slog, and subah you're ready for the whatever event or flight or whatever it is. So yes, WAC runs I remember. Shodh Yatra was a very memorable one. So we went to Ladakh and visited the monastery in Ladakh, which is the Fangsuk Wangru monastery from
Ah.
Three Idiots.
Mm.
So that was very nice with Professor Anil Gupta. Um, what else? Yeah, the food in IIMA. So we were always seen at some restaurant or the other. Ram Bhai, I even loved NR food, man. Night retreat hota tha hamare time par, that which was
Okay.
like Maggie and chai in the night. So
Ah.
you go to have it, and of course I met my husband. So Lalu, I met at IIMA. So
I love that you are called
that's it.
Lalu and Imli, like even amongst each other. It's great.
And a lot of, I think the dom names really stuck for some people, and in our batch, lots of people you meet at random places, and all I remember is the dom name, and you're wondering then, oh my god, what was the actual name? But yeah, we just yeah, we were really spoiled by the dom names, though I don't know the names for a lot of people who are just yeah, all the dom names, which are not very pleasant actually. If a child ever questions me, I'm like, oh, okay.
That's amazing and
So
such a
yes,
great
yeah,
note
lots
to
of
kind
pleasant
of,
memories.
yeah. And I love talking about, I mean, IMA memories with alumni because it always takes you back to when you were in the same place and you get thinking about your own memories. So it kind of feels like everybody has this shared memory of campus, which is amazing. But I think that's a great kind of way to segue into our last segment, which is we always ask people, what would your advice be to somebody who's stepping out on their career, right? somebody who's a fresh graduate?
Mm, mm. Okay, my advice is, and I think it's very easy for me to sit, so far away, 15 years out of campus, and give this advice now, because I think everyone has to go through their own journey to learn and
Hmm.
grow their own way. So let life guide you, basically. So my don't take my advice, but do what you really want to do. But
Yeah.
all I'd say is that sometimes we get so absorbed with what we are doing, and
Hmm.
we are good at it, and we are making progress. But yeah, do take, like you said, take stock of where you are, what you want to do. um, and there are just so many opportunities these days that you will succeed wherever you are. So if you are not happy in where you are, then take that leap of faith. Take that risk of getting lost. You'll be scared shit, but you will find that waterfall maybe somewhere. You will find that hidden cottage somewhere, and enjoy it while you can. And then you might want to go back to the path you were on, but you might equally want to just stay under the waterfall. So yeah, just I think, yeah, try and get lost a little bit, because it teaches you so much. And life, we have only one life. Let's live it, right?
Amazing. That is such a cool way to end this. This is, I have a proper picture of a waterfall in my mind, chilling under it. But thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. I think this was a great conversation. I'm sure it'll give a lot of hope and a lot of lessons for people watching this as well. So thank you so much for taking out the time to do this.
Thank you, Garima. I had so much fun speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you.